I remember a time before the internet where you couldn't easily go on YouTube and look up guides when you were stuck in a video game. At that point, you either needed a friend who knew what to do, or if you were lucky, your mom would buy you an official strategy guide to help you get through it. I wouldn't consider myself a Halo Combat Evolved expert, but I've beaten it countless times, recently on LASO with Mista Vidz, as well as a run through Ruby's rebalanced mod. But this time, there's a twist. I'm not relying on years of experience, community discoveries, speedrun tricks, or modern strats. Instead, I'm putting myself entirely in the hands of this used and abused relic from 2001. I'm gonna try and play through Halo CE as if I had zero experience with the franchise, using only the information provided by this Bungie approved Prima's official strategy guide in hopes that I can beat Halo CE how Bungie intended it. Will this guide turn me into a true Spartan? Or will I be stranded on Halo with nothing but outdated tactics? Only one way to find out. Also, shout out to Papa C. His Pokemon videos gave me the idea for this, and also shout out to Mystery Ore, which is where Papa C got the idea. Just to set the record straight, we're playing with the original Xbox version of Combat Evolved. Bungie would not approve of the Gearbox PC port or MCC versions. And the guide specifically states that this is for normal difficulty, so that's what I went with. It seems the consensus is that Heroic is the canon difficulty, but I couldn't find anything concrete stating that. I think one Bungie guy said it once and the community just ran with it. So normal difficulty it is. I read through the entire guide before making this video and was impressed with all the information. You get a background on the story and characters, strengths and weaknesses for each gun and vehicle, tactics on how to take down each enemy type along with a vulnerability table for each gun you could use against them, and overhead maps of each area throughout the campaign. So time to load up a fresh Halo CE save file and forget everything we know. The guide starts by giving us a play-by-play of the opening cutscene before telling us to look around with the right stick and use X to exit the tube. We are then advised to wander around the hold using the left stick to move our feet and the right stick to control our direction. I'm acting as if I never played Halo before, but I still have full use of my motor skills, so we'll skip ahead. The technician shows us out after we witness Sam's demise. Side note, I never knew that guy's name was Sam, although they specifically call him by name. And the technician doesn't make it either, so the guide tells us to jump over these pipes to find an alternate route. We're instructed to press in the left stick to get under the stuck blast door, and to stay covered when the shooting starts to save health. We get a tip to look out for color-coded arrows on the floor to guide us around the ship, and a note that when a door light is red, you can't access it, while a green light means it's unlocked. Next up, we have to get through this door with the green light, with the blue arrow marked bridge on the floor. We're advised to step lively as we have no weapons, and not to worry about the alien we meet because the Marines will keep him occupied. This Marine guides us to the captain, and there's a special note telling us to read the bulletin board before stepping onto the bridge. It's not important, but it is funny. Yep, checks out. We get a cutscene before the guide tells us to exit the bridge and use the M60 pistol Keys gave us. They mention that it's not much, but it's enough to take care of the first few grunts and get us to this point where we pick up an assault rifle, which felt weird for arguably the most versatile weapon in all of Halo. But I'm just a Halo noob, remember? Based on the vulnerability table, I opted to keep the pistol to use on grunts and jackals and swap the assault rifle for the plasma rifle to use on the elites. The guide also says we may want to grab a plasma rifle after helping the Marines fend off the nasty aliens in the cafeteria, so I'm confident in my choice. When we reach this airlock, it explodes, killing a couple of Marines before Covenant come pouring in. The guide says a well-placed grenade, if you have one, can help stem the tide, but I mash my left trigger to no avail. Instead, I clean them up with what I have. We grab an overshield as advised, fire down this dark hallway, and then hit the flank for the Marines. We're told to flank the next set of enemies as well, and then take out a group of enemies at the next airlock. We're warned to watch out for our backups fire, and then try grabbing another overshield as the guide suggests, but fail since we haven't fully lost our last one. I guess I'm overachieving here. We duck under this blast door and work our way to this central stairwell room. We're told to run up the stairs and attack the Covenant on even ground, since we can wipe them out while they're distracted by our troops, which is exactly what we do. We fight our way through the corridors to this bank of life pod airlocks, and pass them by, destroying the grunts at the end of the hall. Cortana's nav beacon guides us to a dark maintenance hall, so we turn on our flashlight and step inside. The access tunnel lets us out by a busted door that we can press B to bash open, and then do the same to quickly and silently kill this grunt. The guide did not tell me to do that, it just came naturally. We go through the cryo chamber observation deck where Sam met his fate, and fight our way to this burned out section of the ship. The guide warns us to hang back at first to avoid an explosion or two that goes off, and once it's clear we're told to go through this access hall door. There are 3 exits, but the guide tells us to take this one near a trio of Marines and fight our way back. It's the furthest exit from our goal, but this one ensures we don't get flanked and surrounded. The next row of airlocks has a barricade and grenades, and the guide tells us to pick them up and toss them over the roadblock to fling the aliens around in an explosive dance. So we do just that. We jump the barricade and a cutscene starts leading into our next mission. We crashed on a mysterious ring-shaped planet. The guide tells us to collect ammo from around the crash site and head for this bridge. We get across quickly and hug the cliff wall. There's Banshees patrolling the area, so we're told to run along the cliff wall as fast as we can and the Banshees will stop bothering us once we run into some ground troops here. We eliminate the aliens and gather some plasminades, which the guide refers to as fun toys, but use them wisely. An added tip for this section states not to waste time or ammo trying to bring the Banshees down, so obviously we didn't. And as we head farther into the hills, Cortana picks up a lifeboat beacon. We see Covenant dropships unloading troops and have to defend the survivors from waves of Covenant. The guide gives us a warning that the dropships fire at us as it leaves, so stay in motion to avoid its shots as much as possible. Don't try to destroy it, as that would be futile and fatal. As we clean up the last wave of Covies, Cortana sees more lifeboats crashing to Halo's surface. She asks for a Warthog, and the guide tells us that we automatically get one gunner, but if we hang out for a moment, a second Marine will climb in and ride shotgun. The lie detector determined that was a lie. Eventually we give up and head to the tunnel entrance. We line up at the bottom of this ramp and gun it to clear the gap, and follow the underground tunnel to this platform. We drive back and forth a bit to let the Marine have some shots at the beasties, as the guide puts it, and then park the Warthog and hop out. We head up the ramp, take out some elites, and press X to activate the control panel. Then we get back on the Warthog and tool it across the bridge. Once we make it out of the tunnel, we ford the stream and head to this area, taking out the jackals that guard the pass. We pound over the crest to see another large structure crawling with Covenant troops. We bring the Warthog in to help clear them out and mop up the rest on foot. We're told to go in the structure through one of the smaller buildings, take out any resistance, and find the survivors. After destroying the last of the Covenant troops, an evac dropship picks up our comrades, but the guide says we still have 2 more groups of survivors to go. I stop at a downed pelican outlined on this overhead map and find myself a sniper rifle before heading through this tunnel and finding another structure under siege by the Covenant. We put the sniper to use and pace the forest with the Covenant. Another pelican scoops up the survivors and it's time to get back on the Warthog. The guide tells us to tool over to this canyon, and after we've cleared away the alien trash, skate in to find a rocky area. It tells us the survivors are at the top of the pile of screen, but first check out the crash ship to secure a sniper rifle. I do this only to grab 1 extra round for the sniper I already had, before heading up to the rocks on foot. When we make contact with the survivors, enemy dropships start arriving. The guide tells us to position ourselves here and put the sniper to use. We demolish 3 waves of enemies before Cortana reveals she found Captain Keyes. He's a prisoner on the Truth and Reconciliation. Foehammer picks us up and we're off to save the captain. We get to practice our sharpshooting on this mission. We work our way along this ledge, sniping aliens as we go. We focus on the standing guns first and then pick away at the other enemies. Once we clear everyone, we push forward, snipe more standing guns, and deal with another dropship of aliens. We battle through a canyon and make it to the gravity lift. The guide says we can jump into one of the shade turrets and use it against the Covenant troops coming down from the gravity lift if we're feeling frisky. And I'm always feeling frisky. After a few waves, we have our first fight against hunters. The guide tells us to get off the turret immediately as we're an easy target, and to refer to the tactics section of the guide to deal with the hunters. We go with a sniper to try and get a clean shot in their vulnerable backside, which was incredibly simple for the first hunter, but went much worse due to a skill issue with the second. We eventually take them down, assert our dominance, and ascend the lift. We get a cautionary warning that a stealth elite with a camo sword could take a toll on the Marines, so we should concentrate on him first. We get a lucky shot and grab the camo as advised to give our side an edge. After bullying the Covenant in their own ship, 2 jackals come through a big door. We gun them down, and the guide sends us down this hallway to fight our way to the first hangar. Cortana shows us where the locked door is and we can simply jump down, but the guide tells us to shoot the enemies down there first. We use some fun toys and bullets to clear the bottom floor and jump down to open the locked door, which allows the Marines to come in and help us fight off the beasties. We follow the next nav point and fight through the halls to the next hangar that's infested with aliens. We use grenades to discourage them, grab an overshield, and whittle away at the Covenant forces. Cortana tries unlocking a door which unfortunately lets loose a swarm of aliens, and then she tries another door which releases a pair of hunters. We take them out using the elite tactics outlined in the guide, and we follow the nav point to the door out of this hole. We climb through the halls and end up on the upper deck of the hangar where we can open the shuttle bay door and gather reinforcements. Another fighting trip through the halls and we come out here, on the 3rd floor of the hangar. Another wave of Covenant aliens come out to play, so we play hard and push forward to the next unlocked door, which has more aliens guarding it. The guide warns us to stay sharp as more come up behind us as well. Luckily, we were prepared for it, so we make quick work of the flankers, and then keep it moving. The next room is described as another battlefield waiting to happen, and we're instructed to charge in and rack up a body count. We're made aware of a commander elite with a plasma sword, so we target him first and then stroke that body count until there's nothing left. Our Marines decide to just chill in this room for a bit, so we push forward into the first brig area alone, where we can grab a health pack and active camo. The guide tells us to whack the 2 jackals in front of the main brig, and then it tells us to backsmack the 2 stealth elites before sticking the commander elite. It seems I must have taken too long because I run out of camo the millisecond I enter the brig, so I have to do it the old-fashioned way. We struggle a bit against the last camo elite, but we eventually prevail and free the captain. After a cutscene where Keys tells us we need to find the control room to Halo before the Covenant do, and we tell the captain to kindly shut up and get behind me, sir, we have to protect Keys, as if he dies we fail the mission. But luckily he's a good shot. We stay at point to take the brunt of the damage, but the guide notes that we'll take hits from our own guys since they're shooting past us and aren't too bright. We're advised to let it go and give our shield some time to recharge after each engagement. We make it back to the room we left the Marines in to find it retaken by the Covenant. We throw the most perfect grenade possible and Cortana calls for extraction. There's a speedrunning tactic to finish the mission right here, but unfortunately it isn't Bungie approved, so we need to fight our way back to the hangar so Captain Keys can fly us out of here. One failed attempt later, and we make it to the hangar and escape the Covenant ship. On our way to finding Halo's control room, we take a quick beach vacation. We get hot dropped into a firefight, and the guide tells us to take out these 2 grunts on the left and run up to focus on the elites, leaving the grunts to the Marines. We also get a tip that we should hang onto our pistol because we'll need it later. So I drop the assault rifle for the plasma rifle, and after securing the area, Bowhammer drops off a warthog. We jump in and take off down the beach. A short ride brings us here, where we try letting our Marines gun them down, but I decide to take things into my own hands, using the pistol to quickly take out any grunts and switching to the plasma rifle for the elites. As we get deeper into the structure, the Covenant lock us out and we're forced to search for the door security override. We jump back in the hog and ride up to this path leading to the interior of the island. After fighting off our enemies, we have to ditch the vehicle and proceed on foot. We make it to the top of the hill and find 2 hunters, where the guy wants us to use the pistol we kept. It tells us to scope in and unload on their weak spots, dodging when necessary. I do a piss poor job at first, but then totally redeem myself. We continue sniping the beasties in front of us with the pistol and then grab an overshield before heading into the structure below. We find ourselves in a cluttered room with 2 hunters, so the guide tells us not to get too close and snipe them with the pistol. We struggle a bit, but backtrack to grab another overshield and finally conquer the hunters using the dodge tactic. We now have access to the control panel and shut down the security system. Time to get back to that door. We fight some stealth elites on our way out, and the guide tells us to head to the side with the overshields and carefully slide down the cliff to the beach. We clear the area of Covenant forces, flip the warthog, and go for a drive. We grabbed some friendlies on the way before heading back to the first structure we investigated and testing out our newest weapon. I guess I left my Marines hanging, F's in the chat. But we push on and waltz through the door we unlocked. Chief does his best Sir Isaac Newton impression before we catch this elite with his pants down and put those remaining rockets to work. The next room is patrolled by several jackals, so we take them out while keeping watch for the 2 hunters lumbering around. We use our trusty rockets to destroy the big beasts, and then walk down the ramp to the next level. The guide points us to this door, which takes us to an active camo so we can wreak invisible havoc on the Covenant aliens. When we're done, we get to the control panel and access the control center's location. Time for extract. The guide sends us up this ramp, and we have to fight our way back up to the top. The next room is awash with aliens, but a well-placed rocket can make things easier. We're told to get back to this area, but beware, there's a commander elite with a plasma sword waiting and the hallway is close quarters. I think I was a little too careful, since I tried so hard to not unalive myself that I didn't even take out the elite. Next time, I was slightly less careful and we hoof it up the ramp to this hallway. There are several stealth elites waiting, so we deal with them harshly and jump into the dropship to complete the mission. We're flown to an underground chamber, bringing Master Chief to his new destination and next battle. As we get off the dropship, the guide tells us to cover the door immediately to stop the elite from getting to a Banshee, and then we make our way through the door and past a few grunts to the next room. We're told to take it slow, as it's got a lot of Covenant troops tucked into corners and behind walls, so we SWAT team our way through it and follow the lit arrows on the floor. We make it to the bridge, and I can't help but think there's a speedrunning glitch here where you can despawn all the enemies and just walk through the rest of the level. Not sure where I got that idea. But Bungie wouldn't approve of us skipping literally the entire level that they worked so hard on, so instead, we blast the aliens and jump on the shade turret. The guide tells us to tag the Banshee to make it easier to cross the bridge, but it never comes. So we move on to methodically clear both the top and bottom of the bridge on our way across, because if we rush, we'll get swarmed and dragged down. After all, a commander elite with a plasma sword awaits on the other side, and it's best to face him without any of his cronies around. The next room has a stealth elite and a pair of hunters wandering around, so we're warned to step carefully. I wreck shop on the stealth elite, but didn't spot any hunters for some reason. I'm starting to think this guide is misinformation. But we get to this ramp and ride the lift down deep into the bowels of Halo. We follow more hulls into a large, convoluted room, abuse some sleeping grunts, and clear the rest of the enemies before following the lit arrows to this door and back outside. We find ourselves in open ground with a battle raging, and even the odds by taking out the grunt gunning the shade turret on our left. The guide says if we have a pistol, scope the other gunner on the hill and blast him, so we do that as well. And then we make a run for the unmanned ghost next to the hill. Once we have the ghost, we mop up the ground troops and the other ghost, and then concentrate on the Wraith tank, moving constantly to avoid its fire. Once we make our way to this area, we get to jump into Scorpion tank for the first time. The ultimate UNSC vehicle per our guidance. We load up with Marines and take the path to the left, not the tunnel, since we can keep our flanks and rear secure as we fight our way through the next area. This area contains several stationary guns, a pair of Wraiths, a few ghosts, and ground troops, so we're advised to go slowly, using the tank's machine gun constantly and blasting with the turret as it charges. At the tunnel entrance, we blast the hunters and then jump out here to use the control panel. The blast door is open and we get back in the Scorpion and drive out to the bridge area. Here we use the tank to shell the shades and various ground troops and drive right across to the other side. We have to jump out briefly to use the control panel and open the blast doors, but then we're right back in the tank. We keep rolling through the hall, killing Covenant troops as we go. Once we get back outside, there are a lot of ground troops to eradicate, so we're advised to be methodical and pound them with the Scorpion. The Wraith is a pain, so we're supposed to deal with it from range. A Banshee strafes and hunters await, but all can be dealt with from the tank. We drive down this twisty ramp, but we need to make sure to blast the shade across the valley. We handle the rest of our business with the tank, but at the bottom, we need to dismount and leave the Scorpion behind. We're advised to grab the active camo before we go into the tunnel and take out the stealth elite. Not sure this is what they meant, but it worked out. And then we wreck shop on the group out here before running up the path and turning to rocket the gunner above the tunnel we exited. The guide says that this snowplane is a tough nut to crack, But I've plenty of experience busting nuts, so I'd take care of the stationary guns, ghosts, ground troops, and Banshee with ease. We get an additional tip that we don't need to go down the ramp since the only way to make progress is through the door, so we head right in. We can make good progress by just bonking the sleeping grunts and then clean up the rest before pushing forward to an elevator ride. We're told to take out some jackals and stock up on ammo before pushing into the next large room with grunts and a commander elite. We take the guide's advice and take out the commander elite through the window to save us from some damage, and make our way to this heavily guarded door here. Time to clean house and go through. We pop out on another ridge and start sneaky, using our weapon as a club to bash as many sleeping grunts as we can before being spotted. And we trick this elite into yeeting himself to infinity. We're warned that enemies on the adjacent bridge are also attacking us, so we need to keep cover between us and them, and we need to be wary of some elite mages and a stealth elite. But if we take it easy, we should be fine. We conquer the bridge, vanquish the next room that has very few enemies, and trounce this hall which harbors few aliens that need our attention. Farther on is this large room with multiple enemies, so we take our time and clear the perimeter before going after the aliens in the raised central area. We're back to the bridges, but the one next to us has a pair of hunters who take pot shots at us. We kill the nearest enemies, then use the rocket launcher on the hunters across the way, which gives us some breathing room to make it to the other side. The next room is populated by grunts and jackals that we wipe out pretty handily, and then keep going to another wide hallway with stealth elites guarding it. We make quick work of them and find ourselves in a room with 2 hunters. We use the rocket launcher to deal with them from a safe distance and continue through a grunt and jackal choked hall to make it to the final phase of the mission. The guide says as soon as you see the title of the control room flash on screen, run out the door, charge the aliens, and get to the Banshee parked on the bridge. Don't stop to finish an enemy off, just get to the ship. The major elite is going for it as well, so we need to beat him to it. We fail the first time, but the second time's the charm. We spend some time blasting enemies with the airship, clear away the wraith below and other beasties hanging around, and then land up at the top of the pyramid-like structure. A little sketchy dismount, but we open the blast doors, clear the large hallway before opening the final door, and end up in Halo's control room. Unfortunately, something isn't right. Keyes is missing, Cortana tells us to stop him, and the Covenant did something they weren't supposed to do. We get dropped off in a dark and foggy swamp, and the guide tells us to find this crashed dropship to load up. We fight some jackals and cross over this large tree root into a hotbed of action. We ferret out the aliens, enter the tunnel, and activate the control panel to take the lift underground. As instructed, we paste the walls with the aliens we find, and move on to the next 2-level room crawling with aliens. We deal with our foes and drop down to go through the door with the green lights. We move through the next room housing a few jackals, exiting through the only unlocked door, and end up in this room with a pair of stationary guns on either side of a short platform. We jump to the platform and go through the door at the end of it. This Marine is in a bad way, babbling and firing off shots randomly. The guide tells me to blow his brains out. Okay, didn't say that, but come on, he was asking for it. And then we move on to the corner with the fire raging under a broken catwalk. We use the broken slabs as stepping stones, jump onto the walk, and go through the unlocked door. Next, we activate the energy bridge and cross it to the busted door. We notice no one is challenging our progress, which is odd considering how many aliens there were before. Probably nothing. We go down this ramp, open the door, and get a cutscene. Possibly my favorite cutscene in the entire Halo franchise, revealing the horrors that the Covenant unleashed. The flood begins. The creatures that got the Marines begin pouring out of the rooms. We need to run and shoot to keep them off us. Per the vulnerability table, we stick to the assault rifle for the infection forms. After a few waves, combat forms show up to fight, which we also take out with the assault rifle until we can get our hands on a shotgun. The next big room has a ton of flood combat forms and Covenant aliens on the ground floor. The guide says we aren't safe up top since flood can leap at us. We get an additional tip that we don't need to methodically clear every room of monsters and to concentrate on escape rather than eradication. So we drop a grenade or two and go through the unlocked door. In here, we're told to be careful not to fall off the upper walkway and head to the unlocked door and out before infection forms overwhelm us. The next room has flood and coveys, so we fire at an enemy to get things started and duck out to let them damage each other before mopping up the rest and continuing through the closest unlocked door on the upper deck. We can finally pick up a shotgun here and run out the next unlocked door. We walk down a long empty hallway and end up in a lift room. We fight off the flood here and ride the lift, blast a few more of the creepy creatures, and grab an overshield before moving on. The next room has a malfunctioning bridge, so the guide says to grab an active camo and drop down. We head to the next room and jump up the debris to the upper walkway. The guide wants us to go fast so we're still invisible, so we can run right past everyone through the unlocked door to the other side of the busted bridge and slide off the door across the way. Next, we drop off the upper deck and out through the open door in the room, but first we pick off as many combat forms as we can to make it easier on ourselves. Once out the door, we run straight across the next room to the open door on the opposite wall. We clear the flood from the next room, jump up the fallen pillar, stock up on health and ammo, and head through the green door. We turn on the bridge, put the shotty to work, and ride the lift back up to the surface where we meet a complement of Marines who need to get to the evac point with us. We follow them for a bit, supporting them as the flood attacks, and eventually reach a tower in the swamp. Another wave of flood attacks, but we get some unexpected help. Suddenly, we're teleported to the top of the tower. A little blue floating robot introduces itself as the monitor. It's here to help and takes us away, ending the mission. We get teleported to the library where we get a quick glance at the index, but we're going to have to take the long way to go grab it. The guide tells us to follow the monitor and take it slow. Grab a shotgun as soon as we can, and try to clear out each area as we go. They also state their favorite combo is the assault rifle for range and the shotgun for infighting, so that's what we're going to use as much as possible. We go through a short hall and get a glimpse at where we're going, but unfortunately we need to fight through level after level of this area to get to the lift that takes us to the index. We're advised to look for the monitor's bright blue light to keep us on the right path. After blasting a legion of flood creatures, we find the monitor at this security door. He goes to override the codes, returns, and our journey continues. We're warned that this area has some glass sections along the floor that get blown out easily, so I make sure not to plummet to our death down one of them. Wave after wave of flood creatures come after us, so the guide advises us to retreat when necessary to keep them in front of us. We're told to grab this overshield and to keep following the blue light and killing mutant beasts. At this point, we're introduced to the Sentinels. They take some pressure off, but we still need to pitch in. The guide says to target the flood creatures that shoot at the Sentinels, which seems to be all of them, so not much has changed. Just beyond the first appearance of the Sentinels, we find this massive lift. We jump aboard and ride it to the next level, but we still have a long way to go. We blast the carriers that show up when we step off the lift and walk down the hall to where the monitor awaits. It has to attend to a problem and asks us to wait, so we stick tight to the Sentinels and blast the flood creatures that come around. Eventually the door opens and we follow the monitor again. More waves of flood sweep in, and we end up at yet another door where the monitor leads us to attend to a problem. Once he gets back and opens the door, the guide tells us to go through this tunnel. At the other end, flood starts attacking, so we backpedal into the tunnel and let them come at us to easily deal with them. Just outside the tunnel's end is this junction between hallways where flood creatures fall out of the pipes as we try pushing forward. The strategy given to us is to retreat to this junction and mow everyone down. Then move forward again until another wave of enemies show up, retreat, rinse, and repeat until no more flood show up. We're told to lob a grenade at this cluster of flood mutants in the corner, and be wary because they're armed with rockets. We grab them, move forward to spawn the enemies in, and then rocket them and repeat the process. When we're out of ammo, we go back to grab the dropped assault rifle. Then we run through the last bit of hallway to the lift. The guide says we can fight the flood that appear, but we should be able to just skate past them and escape to the next level to conserve ammo, which is what we opt to do. The Sentinels reappear as we step off the lift and clear the way for us to jump into a tunnel. We run along the length of it, killing everything in our way, and come out the other end to more Sentinels frying the next wave of flood. Shortly after, they abandon us again, so we defend the blast door from several waves of flood until they return. The door opens, and the guide tells us to watch out for the rocket launcher touting combat form waiting on the other side. Unfortunately, it didn't tell us to watch out for ourselves. The flood felt bad and made it easy for us the second time, and we used the retreat method to deal with the flood waiting for us at the next junction. We follow the monitor to another blast door, and he locks us into a small area before leaving to open the door. The flood attack, and the guide tells us to get up on one of the inclined areas to fire down and drop grenades on our enemies, and move once the infection forms swarm us. It again advises we use the shotgun. Once the door opens, we can run ahead and jump on the lift to the next level instead of fighting the flood that attack. The sentinels are back at the top of the lift, but a vicious swarm of flood are likely to take them out. We are told to be vigorous in our offense. We loop through a tunnel, blasting carrier forms as they show up, and pop up here, trapped between two doors. We fight for a while before the monitor gets the door open, but the guide says it's not too grueling. Then we proceed through the door and the pipes dump a load of carrier forms on us, so we clear them out before proceeding. Eventually this door opens and the flood break loose. We retreat and take the enemies out with grenades and gunfire. We're told not to go through the door until we blasted a ton of creatures. And once we do that, we push forward and rile things up, getting the flood goons to chase us and retreating to the door so we don't have to worry about our rear. I'm very protective of my rear. Once we're ready, we get onto the main lift, which starts down towards the index. Once we have it, the little blue robot takes possession right away and transports us back to the control room. The ensuing cutscene shows Cortana berating the Chief as we learn the true purpose of Halo, wiping all life in the galaxy clean to stop the flood. Cortana slips back into Chief's suit, and we've now created another enemy in the Monitor and his Sentinels. The guide says that the pistol works well, but we start with an assault rifle and plasma pistol, so I'm not sure where the disconnect is. But luckily, one look at the vulnerability table and we see that the plasma pistol is Bungie approved against the Sentinels. So we blast those flying batteries out of the sky. Cortana decides that we must destroy Halo by setting off the Pillar of Autumn's fusion reactors. We open the blast doors and see Covey's fighting the Sentinels. The guide is still assuming I have a pistol and tells us to snipe both sides with it, but I make do with what I have. We open a couple more doors and end up at the top of the pyramid structure. We clear it of Covenant forces, and Cortana explains our next mission, which includes destroying 3 pulse generators to buy us time for our scheme to destroy Halo. The guide says we can fight our way down the pyramid path or slide down the slope to save some wear and tear. So we opt for the latter and end up on a rocket launcher. We're told to stay here at first to avoid getting blasted by the Wraith. We need to clear some troops before going after the tank. We use some rockets on the elites and clean up the rest of the Coveys before popping the Wraith with a couple rockets and grabbing the Banshee to fly up to the nav point. We use the Banshee's cannons to clear the landing pad and touch down before walking into the Shaft of Light, which drains our shields and destroys the pulse generator. The guide suggests firing a rocket at the exit door when it opens to take out a couple Sentinels and cause confusion before hightailing it out back to the Banshee. We fly down to the bridge and clear away the troops before we land. We clear the room of resistance and head down this ramp, which leads to a wide hall with more Covenant goons. We sweep them up and move on. The Flood are in the next room fighting with the Covenant forces, so we sit back and let them duke it out. When the fighting dies down, we rush in and mop up. We keep the shotgun for Flood enemies and grab a plasma rifle as a best all-around gun to deal with the Covenant. We end up near a set of 2 parallel bridges, with the Flood on one and the Covenant on the other. We step out to get things started and then retreat behind cover to let the 2 sides beat each other up. We progress slowly and are warned to watch out for the Commander Elite with the sword. He had no chance. The next room is fully infested with Flood, and the guide wants us to rush the ramp in the center of the room and clear the viewing platform. We can then pick off the combat forms as they leap up to us. We stem the tide and move on. The guide says to watch out for the rocket flood in this wide hall, but we do a piss poor job of it on the first try. We do a slightly better job the second time and carve through the next room's collection of Flood beasts. We end up on another bridge to see a Flood first Banshee fight, so we let the flyers clean the bridge of some Flood creatures before we dodge and weave our way to the other side. Another room full of Flood beasts lies ahead, so we blast away and move into the far hall. We catch a lift down, fight our way around the perimeter of the next room, and find ourselves outside again. An overturned ghost awaits right in front of the door, so we flip it and mount up. We use the ghost to reap the troops in the area, and get a tip to stop in the gully to grab a rocket launcher for later on. We ride the ghost through the tunnel, past the Flit Warthog, and make a quick stop at the tower to put those rockets to use. We blast the nearby Wraith and fire up a Banshee so we can have some sky battles. After clearing an LZ, we head inside and let the Flood and Sentinels play a bit before we decide to break it up. After clearing the room, we disable the second pulse generator and die a few times on our way out. The guide's tip here is to orient ourselves so that we can run directly to the door after hitting the pulse generator, throw a grenade just as the door opens to clear a path, and then shotgun our way into the hall. I opted to use rockets instead of grenades, but through trials and tribulations, we make it back to our Banshee. We follow the nav point to a tunnel and use the cannon to strafe the Covenant and Flood inside. After scouring the tunnel, we open the blast door and proceed on foot. We destroy the Flood creatures we find, hoof it across the bridge, destroy the swarm of Flood on the other side, and then head out for the final phase of the mission. This expanse of white tundra is the site of a vicious fight between Covenant and Flood troops. The guide says to head to the right as soon as we get out of the tunnel and destroy the small knot of Flood beasts, then let the battle rage for a while before stepping over to mop up. We get to this collection of Covenant hardware and jump in a ghost. Once the area is clear, we head to the lighted path towards the back of the area. We see the two groups fighting again, but since we have a ghost, we're given permission to just wade right in and destroy them all. An extra tip suggests we stop to grab a sniper, so we have a sniper and rocket launcher for the next area, and then we clear the rest of the enemies and move into this area on foot. We use the rocket launcher on the Wraith and switch to the sniper rifle for the troops until we run out of ammo and retreat to swap our empty sniper for our weapon we dropped. We get a caution message that stealth elites are wandering around and can attack as we retreat to swap the sniper. But the guide didn't mention a rocket Flood lurking. Where the hell did he come from? I guess I missed him on my way out. So we handle him before we head to the next area this time and do it all again, retreating for our shotgun and coming back to methodically clear the final area of all enemy forces. We can now climb into a Banshee, fly high up the cliff face, take out the Sentinels, and commit die. That wasn't supposed to be in the script. Per usual, second time's the charm, and we take out the final Sentinels before disabling the third pulse generator and finishing the mission. Cortana learned how to teleport like the Monitor and drops us off upside down inside the Truth and Reconciliation to try and save Captain Keyes for the second time. We take a few steps forward and see a bit of the control room through this grid. Captain Keyes tells us to leave him, but that isn't an option, so we press on. Once again, there's a quicker way to beat this mission, probably, but we're here to do it the Bungie way. The guide tells us to pick up this active camouflage and sneak up on a small knot of Covenant and Flood creatures fighting. We drop a discreet grenade, grab a shotty, and plunge down into the abyss. We land in a pool of coolant, so we clamber out and let the fighting die down before exposing ourselves to the battling forces. We clean up the remaining enemies, grab our trusted plasma rifle shotgun combo, and waltz in on the next area of warfare. We make quick work of the Flood and Covenant before winding our way up a narrow gorge choked with Flood mutants, grabbing a sniper rifle in the process, and using it to put down hunters in the next open area. Once things calm down, we jump down and continue forward. For the next area, we're instructed to get close and throw a grenade past the stationary gun and Covenant forces to rile up the Flood, let them battle a bit, and again clean up the mess we started. Next, we drop down a steep ledge into a narrow path that we follow to another melee between aliens, and we're warned to be wary of the Flood hanging out on the ledges above. The next area houses the gravity lift, and the guide says if we're feeling bold, we can grab the overshield and rush up the lift as soon as we see it, firing as we run. Well, I'm feeling bold, so we fast track our way into the Truth and Reconciliation. From here, we head into the open hallway and Cortana gives us a nav point. We enter a hangar overlooking Flood creatures, gathering bodies to convert into combat forms. Apparently, we'll visit them in a second, but for now we need to keep moving across the catwalk and into the door beyond. The hull here is a Flood monster machine, as they keep dropping down, so we stay steady and pluck away at them, retreating when we have to. Once they stop, we move into the hangar we overlooked earlier and clear it out as well before continuing through the ship's halls. Our only way forward is this hole in the floor, so we first drop a few grenades to clear the area before diving in. We turn the corner to a cluster of Flood mutants battling the Covenant. As always, we let them fight and clean up the scraps. The nav point leads to a shuttle bay with another battle raging, so we sneak across the catwalk on the other side of the bay and climb up to the third floor. We battle our way through the halls, with Cortana telling us to speed things up, but the guide tells us not to listen, as there are a ton of enemies in this cramped space. We toss grenades and hang back for a bit, and put that shotty to work before finally making it to Captain Keyes. We rip the implants out of him and are given two options by the guide. Either stay on the platform and defend it from the flood, or immediately run to the door in the corner to bring the Covenant into battle and hide it out. I opted for the latter, died, then tried the former, died, and then went back to option 1 again. Third time's the charm. We head through the hallway, which is calm after the battle in the other room, and make it back to the 3rd level of the hangar. A lot of Spec Ops Covenant here, so we carefully whittle down their forces, and once reinforcements arrive, we take the tip from the guide and take a shortcut. We jump down to the docking platform, and then once more to the ground level and run to the Banshee to make our escape. Only one last thing to do. We crash land the Banshee into one of the old lifeboat docks, and then go left into the maintenance bay. We make our way to a ladder and toss some grenades in the hole. Once we drop down, we have some sentinels and combat forms to deal with before pressing on to this door, which bursts open to reveal another bunch of flood mutants. A couple hunters are being attacked by the flood in this corridor, so we let the two sides fight, and after the Covenant wins the battle, we sneak up on the hunter. The cafeteria is full of Spec Ops aliens, so we use grenades and quick strikes to whittle them down. And after a few more clusters of Covenant goons, we make it to the bridge. As advised, we toss a grenade at this unsuspecting elite, nail the grunts on the bridge itself, and head for the main console. The monitor ruins our plans, so now we need to manually set off the ship's engines. Sentinels show up to ruin our party, so we blast them out of the sky and fight through the armory area into this hall where two hunters wait for us. We dodge around them and shoot them in their weak spots as instructed and head to the next battle. We third party the flood and sentinels, duck under this blast door, and finish off some more sentinels. This now takes us to the cryo room full of even more sentinels and flood. From here we can use the door so all enemies have to come to us one at a time for easy pickings. Dozens of dead flood later, and we head back into the maintenance hall. Just like the first mission, we now have 3 choices to exit. The guide tells us to take this one, but let the sentinels, flood beasts, and Covenant troops finish fighting first. It mentions it could be a hard fight in the hallway, and boy was it a grueling battle. But we eventually prevail. Next, we're told to ignore the arrows on the floor that say engineering, and follow the ones that say armory. Tons of ammo here, and the guide suggests taking a rocket launcher and shotgun, so that's what we do, before heading back to engineering. We can take either hall to a big room. Cortana says we need to get access to the exhaust manifold and use explosives to blow it up before setting up 4 nav points for the control panels. We use the ramps and doors to get to the 3rd level and activate the control panel. We're told to jump onto the manifold that's retracting, face the vent, and when the gray flaps rise revealing a bright light, fire a rocket to destroy the core. We have to do this 3 more times, so rinse and repeat. An added tip states we can get to all the control panels from either side of the room. The 3rd floor has a walkway connecting the 2 pairs of panels. So we make quick work of the remaining 3 and the Pillar of Autumn is ready to blow. Cortana sets up a nav point that leads to an escape elevator, and we follow the halls to this area where a lift descends with several Spec Ops Covenant aliens on board. We blast them and then ride the lift up to the surface. Cortana sets up a pickup point and all we need to do is get there. We grab a Warthog from the rack of vehicles and get in. We're now in a race against time. Don't stop, don't get out, and don't worry about enemies. Our job is to just go. We're told to exit the motor pool and turn left, and from here on out, just travel to the nav point. The guide doesn't give us an optimal route, but does give us tips such as if we take the upper ramps, we'll need to be at full speed at all times to jump the gaps, so I tended to stay low. When we reach this outside platform, Cortana calls Fohammer for extraction, but the pilot is under heavy fire. It says we can stay and watch as she gets shot out of the air or keep going. But I needed to press F to pay respects before continuing our escape. Cortana warns of a gap coming up, so the guide tells us to keep the Warthog centered and gun it to clear the gap. And then we make it to the roadblock at the end, which is impassable. We're told to jump out of the Warthog and run to the escape ship, ignoring the enemies around us unless they jump right in front of us. Master Chief hoofs it to the landing platform, we punch it out of the Pillar of Autumn, and make it safely to the skies. The cutscene continues to play out, and we've officially beaten Halo CE how Bungie intended. I genuinely loved playing through Combat Evolved using this guide. It was funny seeing what goofy words they used to repeatedly say the same things in different ways. The thought of Chief hoofing it across the landing platform cracks me up. They definitely whipped out a thesaurus to come up with this spectacular vernacular. Other than that, my favorite part was definitely the vulnerability tables for each enemy, as well as tactics to deal with them. When I play on my own, especially on higher difficulties, I tend to stick to the overcharged plasma pistol shot along with the pistol for a quick cleanup to take out enemies. But I never realized how strong and versatile the plasma rifle is. It was the do-it-all weapon in this playthrough. I could see someone unfamiliar with the Halo franchise, or even FPS games in general, using this guide to conquer Alpha Halo like a true Spartan. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments, as I already own the guides for the rest of the original trilogy and could definitely do more of these. And if you want to see a similar video where I revisited the Halo Infinite campaign and explored every aspect of Zeta Halo, click the video on your screen now.